actually do not work full-time. I work maybe 15 or 20 hours a week. And but I actually still earn a full-time income because I get paid well.
Welcome to the Personal Finance for PhDs podcast, higher education in personal finance. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Roberts. This is Season 6, Episode 17, and today my guest is Courtney Danyel of Academia to Affluence. Courtney became a successful freelance writer after leaving her PhD program in anthropology and moving to one of her field sites, but it wasn't all smooth sailing. She now teaches other academics how to launch freelance careers through her course, Endless Freelance Income. In this interview, Courtney gives us her best advice for new freelancers, which all academics need to take to heart. She also outlines the simple steps it takes to get your freelance career off the ground. Courtney's location-independent business has enabled her to earn a very nice income on a very part-time schedule, which I know is attractive to academics looking to freelance for a side income or main income. Without further ado, here's my interview with Courtney Danyel of Academia to Affluence. I am delighted to have joining me on the podcast today, Courtney Danyel of Academia to Affluence. And I just want to tell you in 1 second how Courtney and I first met online, which is that I saw a post that she wrote a few months back on Jobs on Toast. And I saw her business name, Academia to Affluence, and I was like, this is going to be a good fit. I need to talk with Courtney. So Courtney, will you please tell us a little bit more about yourself and why your business name is what it is and what you're up to?
Okay, yes, sure. My name is Courtney Danyel. I am an anthropologist by training, but I actually wear quite a few different hats. I'm a freelance business writer also. I've been doing that for the past 7 years. And as an anthropologist, I've worked in Africa, in Central African Republic and Ethiopia. And I actually currently live in one of my field sites, which is Ethiopia. I've lived here since I started freelancing 7 years ago. And another thing that I started doing late last year was I've started mentoring other academics and other people with an academic background to help them transition into freelancing. And I actually have created an online course for that purpose.
Yeah, so the course name is Endless Freelance Income. I'm actually affiliate for Courtney's course. I had an opportunity to check it out, before this interview. I think it's fabulous. And if you want to find out more about that on my end, you can go to pfforphds.com/freelance and find out more about Courtney's course. And I actually have a couple bonuses for people in my audience who want to sign up for her course. So first, right up front, we're going to get some insights from this course. And then we'll learn a little bit more about Courtney's, background and her personal story that got her to this point. So Courtney, your absolute top advice for an academic looking to start freelancing, what is it?
My number one piece of advice for academics who want to start freelancing is to command high pay from day one. That's because that's a major mistake that I made when I first started freelancing. I had finished my master's and I had done part of my PhD, and I ended up dropping out of my PhD and decided to switch to freelancing. And as far as I was concerned, I thought I was starting from zero, because I was doing freelance writing, and I'm writing about topics that aren't related to my academic discipline. And so, I don't know what I'm doing. And that's basically what I thought about myself. And so for that reason, I didn't think that I deserved very high pay. And then I took a lot of jobs that didn't pay very well at all. Actually, for the first year and a half or so that I freelanced, I was not paid well at all. And then one day I was doing some research for an article that I was writing. I did a lot of ghostwriting back then, which is you write content for other people and it's published under their name. And I was doing some research for an article that I was ghostwriting for a client, and I Googled something, and I clicked on an article that was on Forbes.com, and I looked at it, and it looked familiar, and then I realized that it was written by me. And after I realized that, I started doing some more Googling, and I found that my content, stuff that I had written for my clients, had been published on Forbes, Vice, Business Insider, Entrepreneur.com, and like all these different top business publications. So that's what made me realize that, wow, I guess I am a really good writer in other niches besides just anthropology, and I do deserve to be paid well for the work that I do. And after that, I raised my rates, tripled them really, and basically never looked back.
I think that this advice is one, good advice just for everybody, but two, something that academics or post academics really need to hear, because we are kind of conditioned during graduate school to undervalue ourselves, and it takes really a lot of mental work and for you, a year and a half of actually working in your new field to undo that conditioning, that mindset that's been instilled in us. So I think it's something that this audience really, really needs to hear. And I have found, as I've been involved in academic entrepreneurship spaces, this is one of the top pieces of advice that we pass to one another, which is just raise your rates, raise your rates, raise your rates. I mean, we're so conditioned. Yeah, we're so conditioned not only to undervalue our time, undervalue our work, but also think that service is something that you have to do for your job, which I guess in academia, yes, you do have to, but outside of that, no, you should be paid for, the value that you bring. So anyway, it's a wonderful, wonderful piece of advice. Did you have anything? So actually, one thing I want to mention is something I liked in your course is that you speak, of course, your experience is in writing, but in the course, you cover a lot more than that, right? Freelancing is a lot more than just, freelance writing. And so you talk about base pay rates that you can kind of expect in different fields, right? I thought that was really, that you just got the research jump started a little bit for the people in the course.
Yeah, for me, I'm basically almost 100% at this point just a writer, but I actually have a lot of experience freelancing in other areas, also including doing editing and data science and different things, because you can dip your nib in a lot of different freelance niches. And I also wanted to make the course really open to people who have different skill sets from what I have. Not everybody's an anthropologist. They have different things, different skills that they bring from academia that they can earn good money from in freelancing also. And so the course actually introduces several different popular niches, including writing and editing, translation, data science, consulting, sales and marketing. So you can kind of discover which one is the best fit for your current skills.
Yeah, I mean that one of the fields you just mentioned, consulting, is always one that's very attractive to me when I find other PhDs or graduate students who are consulting. One, because it's a very broad and flexible kind of term, so a lot of people can be consultants in different ways, but also because it tends to command a nice high pay rate if you're consulting in an area of expertise. I mean, you mentioned earlier that when you went into freelance writing, you were kind of moving away from anthropology. You're writing more about business. But, many other people who might be listening to this, they want to double down in their field of expertise, right? And that's how they can command those really high pay rates that you mentioned earlier.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's say, you've convinced people are in your course, they're going to go down this freelance route, whether it's writing, consulting, some other field. What's the best way for them to get started, kind of hanging their shingle and letting people know I'm a freelancer now, you can hire me?
Yeah, so I think the first and most important thing is to build a website, which I know, surprisingly to me, I know a lot of people in academia who are like, wow, you have your own website. That's so cool. I wish I could do that. And I'm like, well, you can set up a website in one day. It's not very difficult. Yeah, so building a website is the first and most important thing you can do to make yourself look like a professional freelancer. And that is another thing I discuss in my course. I take you through step by step how to buy your domain hosting and set everything up, and what the important information you should put on your freelance website to make yourself look like a professional. So that's the first step. And then the next thing that you should do is use networking and cold pitching to get clients, because there's a lot of freelance websites out there that you can get on where you can apply for jobs and stuff. And I'm not kicking that. I think that's great also. And I do recommend that you do that. But you won't get really high paying clients from those kind of gigs. You want to first start with networking. And even if you don't have anybody, you can't get any clients through your personal network, that's fine. You can do it through cold pitching. And for me personally, over the years, the clients that I've had that have, earned me hundreds of thousands of dollars are always the ones that I got through cold pitching. So that's what I recommend.
Yeah, I actually went through a similar process. Like, I don't, I guess, identify as a freelancer, identify as like a business owner, but I went through a similar process when I started my business, which is how do I let people know that I'm available for, speaking engagements and the other work that I was doing. And so I went through a several years where as I was building my network, where I was cold emailing people. So I know I don't really love to be on the receiving end of most cold emails. And so I don't love to send them either. But honestly, that was the necessary, step in the overall process. So like I did a few years of a lot of cold emailing, built up my network, got some responses from that. And now I have basically stopped that. I kind of only do like warm emailing or, cultivating my existing network at this point. So I like that I've moved past that, but I feel like it was a really, really necessary start to the whole thing. Like my business would not have gotten off the ground if I hadn't just been reaching out to people and trying to, start establishing that network. So it's not necessarily pleasant, but it is necessary.
It is necessary, and I always found it intimidating in the beginning, especially because you can send 50 emails and not get a response on a single one of them. That's just a reality of cold pitching. But once you get that one gig, and then it earns you a bunch of money, then it's like, oh, totally worth it, and you feel motivated to do it more. And so it can be intimidating, but that's another thing that for the people who sign up for my course is that they have email support from me. And so I will help them out with any questions if they have. So if they want to start cold emailing, but they're not really sure like where to start or what to say, they can ask me about that, and I'll give guidance based on the experience that I've had over the years.
That's actually really nice because I know one of the sort of major challenges when you're starting a business or starting a side income like this, freelancing could be at first, is not really having like colleagues, like who you can talk with about the work that you're doing. And so that's just a really great sort of addition, in addition to the excellent like content in your course is also to be able to have interactions with you to get that support. Again, as you're building your network of like your peers who are, also freelancing or doing other kinds of work like that. So I find that really valuable. I've been part of a couple communities and I love just, some people process things by talking to other people and they like want some outside input and, you're providing that. So that's super valuable. Now that we've gotten those, excellent nuggets of advice from you, let's talk a little bit about you and your story. I mean, you gave a quick overview at the start of the interview as to how you got into this, but why don't you dive into a little bit more detail about what freelancing has done for you?
Yeah, so, I flew through my bachelor's degree and flew through my master's, with my holding my breath, I did that all really young. And then I was starting my PhD. By the time I started my PhD, I was completely burnt out, It was just, I don't need to explain how difficult academia is to anybody who's listening to this podcast. But yeah, it was just too much for me and I needed a break. And the thing that I always loved about anthropology, the one thing that I loved the most about it was being able to do field work. But field work was something that I was only ever able to do, if I was lucky, 1 or 2 months out of the year. And the rest of the year was spent in a windowless office, doing research and data entry and stuff like that. And so I wanted to just have the fieldwork experience without the office experience. I just wanted to just do something different. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to move to my field site. I love it there. I think it's great. And I want to go live there. How can I do that? I don't know. And so I actually ended up talking to my mom about it, she actually works online. And she's like, well, why don't you start freelance writing? You don't need to earn a lot of money in order to earn a living, especially if you're in Africa. So just give it a go. And so that's what I did. I dropped out of my PhD program. I sold my car, used that to buy a plane ticket, and I left. And I started freelancing here in Ethiopia, and I've actually been here ever since. So that has enhanced my life a lot because I get 12 months of sunshine, which is really important to me. And I love the environment, and I love the culture and learning languages. And so that location independence was really, really valuable to me and for my mental health and just my personal happiness. And then the other thing that is always important is money. So I earned very, very good money as a freelancer. I didn't the first year and a half, as I mentioned before, but once I figured out that I was worth it, I started demanding it and asking for it, and I got it, and I continue to get it. Every time I raise my rates, people say yes. Somebody says yes, And so that's really important, and especially compared to academia. And unfortunately, like after the first 2 years of freelancing, I started earning more money than my former PhD advisor earns, and they're, tenured professor. So that's something.
Yeah, I want to explore each of those points a little bit more because they're both super attractive. The first one, the location independence, you explained how that played out in your life. Like it enables you to move to the place that, you want to live at one of your field sites and have sort of your whole life feel a little bit more like what you enjoyed the most about your academic experience. But I can think of, and of course, if someone else wants to do that and wants to make, freelancing the way they make it happen, that's awesome. I can think of some other benefits, which is, as you know, academic careers and PhD careers, you don't have a lot of control over where you live, especially if you're in academia. But even if you're just a highly specialized professional, there, certain industries are concentrated in certain cities and so forth. So there may be reasons related to your PhD, why that you want to stay in a certain place, and this freelancing can follow you wherever you go. Side note, I, as a, what's called a trailing spouse, so like we live where we live because my husband's job is here, and we anticipate moving because my husband may be, changing jobs from time to time, and he's highly specialized. I get to take my business wherever I go. So I don't have to start over in a new job every time I might need to move. So that's a real benefit that I see, that location independence. And then, of course, on the money side, because we are, this is a personal finance podcast. So commanding the high pay rates, getting paid very well for your time, not just for people like you who are doing this full time, but as a side hustle, if that's the way this starts or that's the way you want to keep this as you move forward in your freelancing career, as well as your, academic or PhD type career. It's really nice when you can make a good amount of money for not that much time invested. Like as a PhD student, for example, you might be able to work 2 hours a week, 5 hours a week, some pretty small number, but still get a really, really nice amount of money out of that small side hustle. And when you compare that, when you're thinking about hourly rates to like the other kinds of work that some PhDs do or some people do when they're still in, graduate school or PhD training, it's really nice, right? to not have to work so many hours, and also to have maybe a more like stimulating type of work, intellectually that is, yet something that is different probably from what you're doing as your main like day-to-day job, if this is still a side hustle. I think that's really attractive in terms of having like balance in your life. It's awesome that you've been able to, command these high pay rates and put together this full-time career, making a very nice income from Africa, from where you wanted to live. And I definitely want, others to consider following your tracks.
You were saying that this is like a full-time job for me, which it kind of is. And but, a lot of other people who are listen to your podcast are people who are in academia to stay, and they would like to have, some additional stream of income to add on top of that. So one point that I would like to make is that I actually do not work full-time. I work maybe 15 or 20 hours a week. And but I actually still earn a full-time income because I get paid well. And this is something that I choose for my personal life because I have 3 foster kids and I homeschool them. And between that and being a mom and, keeping my yard clean, I work 15, 20 hours a week on freelancing, and that's about it. And so you could do this as like a part-time gig and still earn like a lot of money. It doesn't have to become like your full career. You don't need to invest 100% of your time in it. I don't even invest 100% of my time in it. I don't even have another source of income. So that's something.
Thank you so much for adding that. That's awesome that you're earning this like great full-time income from part-time work. I actually also work part-time as well. I work about 25 hours a week, and I'm quite happy with that balance actually. So I really like that you added that point, because the whole like working 40 hours a week thing is so job centric. Like that's what, our culture has decided is like, well, really not just 40, much more than 40 hours a week is like the proper amount of time to be working. And once you, start your own business, once you strike out on your own, all the rules are out the window, right? You can define what you want your work life to look like completely. And that goes both location and time and amount of money, as we talked about earlier. So I'm so glad that you added that. Thank you. Let's say someone is super excited about what we've been talking about. They want to, start down their freelancing career in whatever, field that might be in. and they want to sign up for your course, which again, they can do through pfforphds.com/freelance, and you can get the couple bonuses that I created there. So what can someone expect to find, when they start your course?
Okay, well, first, I guess I'll explain who the course is for specifically. After I started freelancing, even in the first year or two I started freelancing, I got emails from people that I know, from people in my former cohort, professors that I know, people in grad school who heard, hey, I heard that you left academia and started freelancing, and I'd like to do something similar. Like, can you give me some advice? And so I've been giving advice to people for years. I get emails several, 10 or 15 times a year. I get an email from somebody, or I get a referral from somebody who's in academia and they want to make the switch, or they want to add on to an additional stream of income through freelancing. And so after years of basically kind of helping people just as like a side project, I decided to create a course to basically do what I was already doing, but do it in a more organized and formal way to help people. So that's what I created this course for. It's called Endless Freelance Income, how to turn your liberal arts degree into endless freelance income. However, even if your background is in science or any of the STEM areas also, it can also be relevant to you. So the course, at the very beginning, it just introduces you to the online freelance world. So if you don't know the first thing about it, don't worry, I will explain it to you in the course. That's the first chapter. And then the next chapter, which I think is probably the most valuable one for people, is helping you identify what your most valuable and profitable skills are that you can, from academia, that you can translate into freelance income. And also that I through the mentoring there, I also kind of help people people tend to overlook their skills, like they think, oh, like, I guess I can write, or like, I guess I can do some data analysis, but I don't have, a degree in that, so I'm not qualified to do that. So kind of just help people break that down. Imposter syndrome follows you outside of academia. I learned that the hard way. And so just kind of help people to understand, no, these are valuable skills and you can utilize them.
What I liked about that portion of your course, what I noticed there is that you have worksheets in here, right? So it's not just like I'm just reading all this material. Like, it's a very, it's an engaging like format, right? So you're giving people some little tools they can use to do things like, brainstorm about their own skill sets, which I totally agree with what you said. Like, we tend to discount our own skills or our own like areas of expertise unless we have a degree in it. Like, that's very important to us in academics, that like we have a degree in XYZ. But I know, personally, like, my field is now personal finance, and I don't have a degree in personal finance, and that's okay. I'm still confident to this point that I am an expert in this area because of my long experience. But I think that for people who aren't quite there yet, it is a little difficult of a hurdle to overcome. So your course definitely helps with that.
Yeah. And, same story for me. I'm an anthropologist, but I write in marketing topics, marketing and entrepreneurship. So, and I am an expert because I became one, and that's it. And so you can do it too. That's basically what the course helps you to figure out. So once you've kind of broken down and pulled your skills out, then the next chapter teaches you about several different major freelance niches that you can get into. And I already mentioned before, there's writing, editing, translation, administrative support, design and creative, customer service, consulting, data science and analysis, and sales and marketing are the ones that I go through. So those are the main ones. And then it walks you through how you can look at your current skills and line them up with what each of these niches demand or what they need. And then also helps you think about which one's most interesting to you too, because it's not just about your skills, it's also about what you want to do, right? And then you can choose your niche. And then after that, the course goes through how to make yourself look professional as a freelancer. One thing that I discovered when I left academia is that I needed to tone down my CV and kind of just change what's professional in academia and what's professional in the online business world are very different. And so I kind of teach people how to make yourself look professional online, as opposed to professional as, a 10-page CV or something like that. So that's the next step. And then the next thing after that is teaching you how to research your niche so that you can figure out what the going rates are in your niche, the going rates for somebody with your skill level, and, just kind of also to weed through the riffraff, because a lot of people out there, they say $10 an hour or something like that. Yeah, you don't need to pay attention to those people. So to figure out how much you should be charging in the beginning. And then after that, the course goes through, takes you through step by step how to create your website, which I mentioned before. And then it walks you through what you need to do to land your first client. And that is the course in a nutshell as it is right now. I plan to add on to it. Like I said before, I think cold pitching is important. So one thing I plan to add on to it in the future is more information about walking people through how to set up a cold pitching scheme. And so that's something I plan to add on to it in the future. And the good news is that if you have access to the course, you buy it now, you'll have access to all that future material as it comes out.
That sounds awesome. As I said earlier, I read through the course prior to this interview, and it really breaks things down and simplifies them and doesn't make it seem so intimidating to start down this path of freelancing. You really don't over complexify anything. It's very simple steps to follow to get started. So I wanted to mention for my audience, if you choose to buy Courtney's course through my affiliate link, which again, pfforphds.com/freelance, I've created a couple extra bonuses for you. So one that everyone will receive who buys through my link is a free video training on how to budget with an irregular income, right? So I'm really confident, you go through Courtney's course, you're committed to this, you're going to be starting down that path of having freelance income. And, that's a really great thing, but it can also pose some budgeting challenges. So I've created a training that you'll get for free when you buy the course on how to manage that, manage your finances when you have a side income stream that's irregular, maybe growing into a full-sized income stream over time. So it'll help you out with that. And then for the first 5 people who buy the course, so not everyone, but just the first 5, I'm going to offer a free 25-minute financial coaching session. So what I think would be really great about this is if you schedule this for maybe 2 months out from when you start taking the course. It'll be a nice little accountability point to meet with me at that time and say, okay, Emily, here's the income stream. I've established it. I got my first invoice over here. I've gotten paid for the first time. And so we can talk more about how, what you want to do with that money, how it's going to help you reach your goals, how it's going to fit into your budget. What do you want to be paying debt? Do you want to be investing it? So we can talk about all that kind of stuff. So that's how I recommend to use that bonus if you're one of the first 5 to sign up, is schedule it a little ways out so you actually have that income stream, established by the time we meet together. And I'll certainly be asking you if you've been implementing everything from the course. So again, pfforphds.com/freelance is where you can sign up. And of course, link through to find out more about the course from Courtney. So Courtney, we've come to the end of the interview. Thank you so much for what you've shared with the audience today. I think it's been excellent advice, and thank you for telling us more about endless freelance income. So final question that I ask all my guests is, what is your best financial advice for another early career academic or maybe recovering academic like you?
My best advice would be, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Something my dad told me when I was 17 years old, and I didn't know what it meant at the time, but now I do. So, just even if you've got your dream job, even if you've gotten, that research position or that tenure track job or whatever, you never know what's going to happen in the future. That's something we've learned this year in 2020, I think. And so you having an additional stream of income is really valuable. And I know that's what Emily talks about all the time on her blog. But and the thing about freelancing is that there's no risk in starting and giving it a try. And you can just work on it in your spare time, and you can build it up over time in whatever time you have. And if you don't have time to work on it, you don't have time to work on it. And it doesn't hurt you to work on this and build up this extra stream of income. You don't have to be like me, where you leave your job and leave your country and change your whole career. I think that all academics should be doing something on the side, some kind of freelancing, blogging, something. So that's my advice.
Yeah, I totally agree. Not all the eggs in one basket can apply to a lot of different areas, but certainly when it comes to your income, having a job or even being in graduate school means you're dependent on another institution to decide to continue to give you work. But the advantage of freelancing is that you spread that around to a lot of different clients, and it's much less risk. Yeah, one client drops off, no big deal. You can, supplement that by hustling up a few new clients. But if your employer decides they don't want to work with you anymore, that's kind of a devastating like life thing. So excellent advice. What I also like about what you said is that if you do the work, for instance, by going through your course, like if you do the work to establish yourself as a freelancer and you devote even something like an hour a week to it, like I mentioned earlier, as long as that income stream is established and in a field like freelancing, it's something that you can decide to turn up or turn down as you need in your own life. So for example, if you have an unfunded summer, some people, again, you mentioned 2020, some people in 2020 have late in the game discovered that they don't have summer funding in the way that they thought they would. Yes, their funding will pick up again in the fall. It's not like they're going to drop out of graduate school and get a full-time job or whatever, but for a few months, the income that they thought was secure is not there. So, it's once the situation is upon you, it's very difficult to scramble and kind of fix it. But if you've already established that 1 hour per week, freelancing job, then that's something you can ramp up or ramp down as your life allows, as your money situation requires. So I just think it's a real advantage to like establishing yourself, even if you're not going to do it, like you just said, 15 hours a week to make the equivalent of a full-time income. So great advice. Courtney, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It was a real pleasure to talk with you again.
Thanks so much, Emily. Thank you.
Listeners, thank you for joining me for this episode. pfforphds.com/podcast is the hub for the Personal Finance for PhDs podcast. There you can find links to all the episode show notes and a form to volunteer to be interviewed. I'd love for you to check it out and get more involved. If you've been enjoying the podcast, please consider joining my mailing list for my behind-the-scenes commentary about each episode. Register at pfforphds.com/subscribe. See you in the next episode, and remember, you don't have to have a PhD to succeed with personal finance, but it helps. The music is Stages of Awakening by Poddington Bear from the Free Music Archive and is shared under CC by NC. Podcast editing and show notes creation by Miriam Ock.